April 1943, the sky above northern France. On the airbase at Beauvais-Tillet, German pilots gather in loose formation, leaning on the wings of their Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, trading stories of yesterday's dogfight. The consensus is unanimous. The American P-47 Thunderbolt, newly spotted in the skies, is a joke. "It looks like a flying milk bottle," scoffs Lieutenant Erich Neumann, 22, his leather helmet askew, a grin tugging at his lips. "If it gets in trouble, its best maneuver is to land and run away." Nearby, mechanics laugh, calling it clumsy, overweight, ugly, nothing like the swift Bf-109 or the agile FD-190. Engineers pore over photographs, speculating about American desperation. Why so much armor? Why so heavy? "It's not a fighter, it's a bomber with delusions," claims a seasoned Oberfeldwebel. High command watches with bemusement. Reports from the Luftwaffe's intelligence arm confirm the view. The P-47 is slow to climb, heavy in turns, a lumbering giant. German pilots are advised, attack from above, target the cooling system, use agility to outmaneuver, then finish with cannon fire. Major Galland dismisses the threat in his field report. "The Americans do not understand aerial warfare. They have built a tank for the sky." But something is happening behind the mockery. As the pilots mount their aircraft, the tactical situation has begun to shift. The P-47s arrive in increasing numbers, their formation discipline tight, and their gunnery surprisingly accurate. On the horizon, fat silhouettes appear, sun glinting off wide wings, each bristling with 8 Browning 50 caliber machine guns, a detail German radar officers have begun to note with concern. Technical interlude. The Thunderbolt arrives. The first encounters follow predictable scripts. German aces dive from altitude, catch the jugs flat-footed in climb or turn. A few American pilots panic, caught in unfamiliar machines, their previous training often in lighter Spitfires or P-40s. The first weeks are tough. Statistics: 14 Thunderbolt losses for 3 confirmed kills. British Spitfire pilots joke that the best escape maneuver in a P-47 was to unstrap and scramble through the roomy cockpit. But mechanics and intelligence officers see something odd. P-47s limp home riddled with holes, 21 cannon impacts, more than 100 machine gun strikes, damage that would send a Messerschmitt or Spitfire spinning to destruction. Radial engines, lacking vulnerable coolant systems, soak up punishment and keep turning. Reports circulate. On May 4th, a Thunderbolt with a shredded wingtip and shot-up instruments manages to land at Manston, pilot shaken but alive. "It shouldn't be flying," says a German ace, inspecting the wreck. "It defies reason." The turning point is brewing, the mathematics of firepower, resilience, and psychological shock, setting the stage for a battle that will transform laughter into fear. August 1943. Above St. Lo, the air shimmers with tracer fire. German ace Otto Hübner leads his Staffel into combat with P-47s escorting B-24 bombers bound for Hamburg. He remembers earlier laughs at the Thunderbolt's awkward bulk, but now his tone is cautious. "Engage only from above. Never in a turning fight," he warns his wingmen. As Otto dives on a pair of Thunderbolts, he opens fire, shells streaking toward the rounded fuselage. The result isn't as he expects. Instead of snapping apart, the enemy absorbs the hits, banking away in a treacherously fast roll. A moment later, the air is alive with the roar of 8 Brownings. Otto's canopy explodes with shards. The tail of his 109 is sawed nearly in 2. He breaks off, panicked. Even our best pilots fear the jug now. It is a nightmare when it opens fire. On the ground, American pilots like Robert S. Johnson and Francis Gabreski become legends. These aces return to base in P-47s so shot up, ground crews nickname some aircraft Swiss cheese. Still, with hundreds of bullet holes, the Thunderbolts land, their radial engines and near-inch-thick armored cockpits, saving lives time and again. German technicians analyze wreckage. They find armor-plated oil lines, self-sealing fuel tanks, thick steel shielding around the pilot. Reports circulate. You must fire a whole cannon burst to down one. Ordinary gunfire is not enough. Heinz Baer, a respected Luftwaffe ace, remarks to his group commander, "The jug can absorb an absurd amount of fire. You must handle it carefully, or it will handle you." The technical arms race grows desperate. German pilots try new cannon angles. Some carry extra fuel, hoping to dive away at speed. But the P-47, with its advanced turbocharger, outdives even the sleek FW-190. It's not just strong, it's fast when diving. In clouds, it falls like a hammer, Otto notes. The German High Command redirects tactics. Attack Thunderbolts only near home fields and avoid head-on passes at all costs. Ground attack, fear on the front. Late 1943 Normandy. American P-47s, the backbone of tactical air command, line up for ground attack sorties. Their pilots bomb rail yards, strafe supply trains, and destroy armored columns with a breathtaking immunity to ground fire. In one mission, a Thunderbolt shrugs off 4 direct flak bursts, drops rockets on a German panzer convoy, then returns to base trailing smoke. German soldiers, infantry, tankers, flak gunners dread the jug. We saw them low over the trees, guns blazing, rockets screaming. They came so fast, sometimes there was nothing left but burning trucks and silence, recalls Feldwebel Günther Klein, wounded near St. Lo. Even German armored vehicles, coveted for their resilience, sometimes fall victim to the concentrated fire of 850s and skipping bombs. Skip bombing techniques astound observers as Thunderbolts bounce 500-pound bombs into train tunnels, destroying hidden locomotives and clogging supply lines. June 1944. D-Day dawns over the French coast. 1,000 Allied bombers, paratroopers in the night, and invasion fleets anchored on the horizon. Above, swarms of P-47 Thunderbolts streak west and south, tasked with destroying German fortifications, fuel dumps, convoys, and tanks. German pilots, operating from battered airfields, face a nightmare. Heavy Allied fighter cover, relentless bombing raids, and the return of the jug. Fighter Gruppen near San scramble in vain as P-47s appear in clouds or alone, firing bursts that rip through bunkers and vehicles. Oberleutnant Werner Lehmann recalls a mission. They came out of the sun, firing for 30 seconds straight. My wingman was gone before he could break. Even tanks feared their guns. The technical reality is now undeniable. Each Thunderbolt packs 8 Browning 50s with nearly 3,400 rounds total, muzzles sprouting flame as ground crews load bombs, rockets, and napalm for the modernized war. The P-47's turbocharger lets it climb above the clouds, then dive like a meteor to pound bridges, armored trains, and troop formations. German commanders order flak guns to target them, but with armor and self-sealing fuel tanks, most jugs return riddled but flying. The Normandy campaign turns the jug into a legend feared and respected by friend and foe. American pilots report strafing columns for miles, watching 8 streams of fire tear up trucks and supply wagons. Chapman, an armor officer, notes, Thunderbolts would roll in low, blowing convoys apart, sometimes nothing left but burning steel and tangled bodies. German infantrymen on the ground recognized the distinctive shape and roar. We dropped everything and ran for trees, remembers Gefreiter Hans Meyer. If you saw the Thunderbolt, especially from behind, you prayed, not fought. It killed tanks with bombs, cut lines with guns, and destroyed morale. Last Stand, the final battles. Winter 1944-45. As the Allies advance through France and the Low Countries, Thunderbolts become the terror of the shrinking Reich. Their heavy payloads, sometimes up to 3,000 pounds, hammer bridges and armored units retreating east. Pilots like Gabreski and Zemke become icons, their battered aircraft returning with wild stories, escorting bombers over Berlin, surviving direct flak bursts, exploding armored trains with skip bombing. German airfields are under siege. Fuel shortages leave Bf-109s and Fw-190s sitting ducks for strafing P-47s. Even armored bunkers suffer. Jug pilots learn to bounce 500-pound bombs off runways into munitions stores. In one legendary mission, P-47s destroy 30 tanks and nearly 100 vehicles in a single afternoon. The Luftwaffe's last great hope, jets and new tactics, fails against the raw mass of Allied aircraft. German pilots, their numbers thinned, now regard the Thunderbolt with a grim respect. Its guns ruin your wing, then your day, says Oberst Hermann Wilke. Squadron leaders warn, you can shoot it a dozen times, it may still kill you. Surviving German aces gather in field messes, swapping scars and stories. We used to laugh, now we survive. The jug is no joke, a professional killer with the heart of a tank. Epilogue, Legend, Memory, and the Forgotten Laugh. May 1945. The war ends and the battered Luftwaffe surrenders. P-47 Thunderbolts dominate Allied airfields everywhere, some battered, some pristine, but all symbols of American firepower and tenacity. Many aircraft are scrapped, others sold or given to new Allied air forces in France, Britain, Russia, and South America. German POWs and pilots remember the lessons painfully learned. The Jug could take hits and keep flying. It made you question your doctrine, your arrogance, says Heinz Baer, Luftwaffe ace. Allied crews salute their rivals. Mutual respect is forged in the fire of combat. Historical records tally the devastation. Nearly 4,000 enemy aircraft, 9,000 trains, 86,000 trucks, and 6,000 armored vehicles destroyed by P-47s. American pilots speak fondly of the ugly, wonderful, unstoppable machine whose firepower, survivability, and sheer shock value redefined air combat in the West. The laughter, once mocking, became legend. The P-47's 8 Brownings, thundering over the ruined highways of Europe, earned a place in history, proof that the joke was always on those who laughed first. May 1945. The war's thunder fades, and Europe, torn by 6 years of agony, tries to heal. On airfields scattered from Normandy to Berlin, P-47 Thunderbolts stand poised in sunset after the last mission, 1,000 pilots packing for home, painting kill marks on cowls, and exchanging letters with those who once flew beneath the German cross. American pilots gather for final squadron photos. Zemke, Johnson, Gabreski, aces of the 56th Fighter Group, trade stories of near escapes, impossible dives, and the raw power of the Jug. Some pilots look at the battered armor plating and remember hours spent in clouds of tracer fire, comforted by the knowledge that no other fighter could take as much punishment and still fly home. "I owed my life to that ugly plane," Johnson tells a war correspondent, "more times than I can count." German pilots return to ruined bases, greeting friends lost and found. For some, surrender means finally admitting the Thunderbolt was no fluke. Heinz Baer, Luftwaffe ace, writes in his diary, "We laughed at its shape, sneered at its size, but when 8 guns opened fire, we ran." In the end, it was not a joke, it was the lesson. You could kill a Thunderbolt, but you couldn't ever underestimate it. Technicians and engineers pick through burned-out wrecks, marveling at armor, redundant controls, self-sealing tanks. For many young Germans, the Thunderbolt becomes a grim benchmark. If you can beat the Jug, you can beat anyone. Some hold on to pieces of shrapnel or 50 caliber shells, relics of a battle that taught them humility. Post-war, the legend grows. P-47 Thunderbolts fly in new air forces: Brazil, France, the Soviet Union. In 1947, the Jug is redesignated the F-47, a name later immortalized in the A-10 Thunderbolt II, itself designed to survive against the latest engine-killing guns. Historians tally the toll: 7,000 enemy aircraft, 9,000 trains, 86,000 trucks, 6,000 armored vehicles destroyed, 15,600 Thunderbolts built, 500,000 sorties flown. An aerial kill ratio of 4.6:1, a story of fire, steel, and survival. Museum curators polish the glass of old Thunderbolts and share the cockpit's view with generations who never felt the hammer's thunder. Survivors, American and German, shake hands decades later, trading stories that once would have cost their lives. "We mocked what we did not understand," says Oberleutnant Lehmann at a veterans gathering in 1960. "The Jug taught us to respect the unexpected." Children ask about the planes, about the men who flew them, about the sound of 8 guns raining lit over France. The answer is always the same: courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to learn, even from an enemy's triumph. As dusk settles on the old fields, a final radio crackle. Thunderbolt returning to base, mission complete. For all who witnessed its power, laughter fades, awe lingers, and the legend of the Jug becomes immortal, a testament to the truth that the greatest weapons are not always the most beautiful, but the ones that bring their pilots safely home. By the end of the year, frontline reports record a new pattern. Instead of "attack with impunity," German pilots are forced to warn ground troops, "If you see Thunderbolts, take cover. Even our best do not survive direct attack." Strategic shift and mutual respect. Winter 1943-44, pilots on both sides know the truth. The P-47, once laughed at, is now feared. In pilot bars across France, Luftwaffe aces swap new advice: "If you must fight Thunderbolts, bring friends. Never alone." The arrogant laughter has died completely. Some now appreciate the skill of American pilots and their willingness to fight in close, risking everything. Allied bomber crews, long nervous under flak and intercepts, feel a new confidence when Thunderbolt escort is overhead. "When the Jugs showed up, we knew we had a chance to come home," says USAAF navigator Jim Peterson. German pilots take pride in surviving battles with the flying hammer. When lucky enough to down a P-47, whole staffels toast with respect to the enemy that earned it. Gabreski, Johnson, and Zemke rack up dozens of kills. The 56th Fighter Group becomes legend, the only 8th Air Force unit to keep flying Thunderbolts long after most switched to Mustangs, by choice, not order. Over 500,000 combat missions flown by Jugs, nearly 7,000 enemy aircraft destroyed, and countless lives saved by steel and skill. By spring, the noisy, ugly, armored, and fire-breathing Thunderbolt is no longer an object of ridicule. It is the grim reaper of the Allied air forces, the hammer that cracked open the Luftwaffe wherever it turned.